Transgenic animals and crops. Welcome to the weird world of genetic engineering. As the name suggests, we live in a world where genetic engineers can simply modify our genes and transfer this information into another living organism. That's a big shocker, isn't it? That's not even it. One big shocker is that all animals, are way similar than we thought. You know how you hear the connection between apes and humans and how they evolved? Yes, I could understand and see the resemblance. But what about a mouse? How genetically similar do you think we are to mice? Well, let me say 85% similar.
You're lying.
Yes, we are 85% genetically identical. But the real question is, why are mice furry and so small? Well, I'll give you the long answer in a minute. But the short answer is because of genetic engineering.
But what is genetic engineering? An animal or crop that has been genetically modified as their genes were altered by adding one or two genes from the host organism into the new organisms are known as transgenic organisms or GMOs, genetically modified organisms. For example, a tobacco plant was genetically modified to have the physical characteristics of a firefly, to able to glow by inserting a firefly gene into tobacco plant cells. Isn't that cool? We're going to look in more detail on how transgenic technology works later on in the video, but let's focus on how it led to the discovery of transgenic animals or crops. It's amazing how food technology has evolved from tens of thousands of years ago, when humans used to hunt for animals and gather food from the wild, to producing crops and various breeds of animals through genetic engineering.
I agree with Yeshu. The world has evolved quite a bit. For thousands of years, many of us thought our genes specifically came from our parents, but who knew scientists could do this with very advanced technology? The founder that discovered the fundamental laws of inheritance was Gregor Mendel. In his experiment, he crossed yellow pea plants with green pea plants. In the first set of offspring, he found yellow peas more evident. In the second set of offspring, he managed to recognize that some of the peas were green. Being that the first generation of peas were yellow, he concluded that certain traits were dominant while others were recessive. After his finding, researchers understood the importance of his finding and began to research more about transgenic plants and animals. The work of Berg, Boyer, Cohen, and other countless researchers was derived after the finding of DNA. After Watson and Crick discovered the structure of DNA, the chemical code that encodes for genetic information, and Mendel discovered that genes can be inherited, research on transgenic plants and animals was done. Scientists thought genetically modifying plants and animals could be a cure to serious diseases and illnesses. Scientists and researchers thought it would help the world if stronger plants and healthier plants were produced. However, several questions arose whether living organisms could be patented. At first, the patent office rejected the application as they thought animals could not be patented, and the case reached Supreme Court. This was controversial, and the court's decision was significant because it means researchers could apply a patent on almost anything. Anything that is obtained from the organism could be easily patented. After this issue, many companies and researchers working on new genetically engineered plants or animals sought for a patent. The first approved patent was when Dirkkalb Genetics Company asked for a patent for a corn plant, proving it provided more nutrients to animals. As for researchers at university, they were genetically engineering a mouse. However, they did not receive a patent due to many complications. Canadian Supreme Court ruled that the mouse is not an invention and it could not be patented. Patenting a life form continued, and many companies fought to patent life forms. After many cases, the right for a company to patent a plant or life form was granted eventually.
Because of this amazing discovery, most of the farmers all around the world grow genetically modified crops as they're easy to grow, store, and ship all around the world without crops being damaged. Another reason is that they're resistant to pests, so the farmers don't have to spend so much money on buying pesticides. GMOs are also very helpful to farmers, as if a crop gets wiped out because of a certain disease, genetic engineering can help farmers by altering their gene to make it resistant to that certain type of disease. GMOs can be beneficial to human health, as transgenic animals like goat was modified to produce milk that has the proteins which are only found in spider silk's milk. This is the reason why genetic engineering is very beneficial for humans, as we can genetically modify organisms to produce varying nutrients that our human body lacks from our daily diet, and also makes a farmer's life so much easier. Let me tell you a fun fact. Did you know 18 million farmers grow genetically modified crops today? Transgenic animal crops uses the genetic principle of recombination to genetically modify the genes of the organism. Recombination is a process of inserting a target gene from the host cell's DNA into the new organism cell's DNA, which is known as the recombinant DNA, in order to produce new species with new special traits. Isn't that amazing? For example, to produce a recombinant plant, scientists use 4 of the following steps. Hence, one cannot produce genetically modified food in their kitchen, as it requires advanced technology and particular condition for recombinant DNA to work properly. Let's take a look. The target gene that encodes for desired trait from the host cell is recognized and removed from DNA using enzymes called restriction enzymes that cuts the DNA at a specific location. The target gene is inserted into a plasmid of bacteria, which is a circular section of DNA present in a new cell to replicate the target gene as the plasmid independently replicates. The copies are removed from the plasmid and are inserted into a plant cell, which is grown into culture. Plant cells with recombinant DNA are placed in a special culture that allows these cells to grow into a plant. The plant is then breeded to pass on the target genes to their offspring. I have 2 different apples here. One is genetically modified and other one is organic. Which apple would you prefer? Most of the people would avoid the genetically modified and prefer the organic because people believe that modifying crops or food have many dangers to human health. In 1999, in some areas of UK, protesters who are against GM food chopped down and burned the GM cornfields. In 2013, approximately about 400 protesters trampled the golden rice plants, which is by the way rich in vitamin A and developed to reduce malnutrition, argued that it harms human health and limits the diversity of plants in nature. Some developing countries grow GM crops provided that it's not part of their culture food, which raises issues as farms that originally grew their native crops got replaced with GM crops. The ethical concern is that not a lot of attention is given to improve their native crops like GMOs through genetic engineering, as financial support is not given to scientists in their country to do research. Therefore, since then, protests have continued and issues have been raised till today, as the belief still stands in people's hearts.
The idea of genetically modifying living organisms such as plants and animals has always been a controversial issue within society because many people are scared of the bizarre mutations and creations that could be formed. Genetic engineers have the power to add a gene from a bird into a pig. Does that mean a pig will fly in the future? We don't really know. Transgenic plants and animals has always been a debatable topic. Though it brings new creations and healthier and more nutritious foods, many people are concerned on the impact on health. The safety, ethics, and effectiveness of GMOs will always remain a controversial issue. While some countries approve of genetically modifying living organisms, other countries strongly disapprove and see biotechnology as a negative thing. Anti-GMO advocates argue that the fact that this technology has not been tested on humans. Understanding that this discovery is quite new, it'll take a lot of time to prove that GMOs are beneficial. GMOs has benefited us when it comes to crops. Specifically speaking about tomatoes, we're able to grow it in our backyard. How are we able to grow in our backyard? If you guys did not know, tomatoes are a seedbed plant that is grown in a dry and hot environment. Back in the days, tomatoes were not able to adapt to the cold weather, so scientists used the method of recombinant DNA. So the tomato receives a gene that enables them to be grown in fall. In 1992, this was the first crop to be genetically approved and genetically modified. Genetically modifying this plant has benefited us as we are able to grow this plant in our garden without being in fear that it won't die. Another fun fact that was mentioned by Maureen Cohen, a researcher, she stated that genetically engineered grass and trees can help get rid of pollution. Scientists have modified popular trees so that they can remove 91% of groundwater pollutants. Normal poplars can only remove 3%. This is amazing considering the impact of pollution on the environment.
GMOs are a very controversial topic, but an interesting one. To watch more videos like this, subscribe our channel and like our channel. We'll see you next time.